Daily learning.
Why do we often miss things that were never ours? Have you ever felt a sudden longing that appeared out of nowhere, even on the brightest of days? Or has that strange feeling ever followed you in the middle of a crowded room, when you were surrounded by people you knew, yet your heart ached for something you could never name? Sometimes, life surprises us with the quiet realization that our hearts can ache for things that never truly belong to us. And although the idea may sound unusual at first, the experience itself is far more common than we admit, because longing often does not come from memories of what we once touched or possessed, but from the fragile weight of dreams that never happened, moments that dissolved before they could begin, or possibilities that lived only in the corners of our imagination. From the earliest years, when we were still children, gazing out of windows and wondering about the world that stretched beyond our reach, we carried within us a gentle tendency to create imagined stories of what could be, to picture entire lives we might never live, and to hold on to fleeting hopes that somehow felt real. As time slowly moved forward, those unspoken possibilities never vanished, but lingered quietly, waiting to return in the stillness of sleepless nights, the hush of a rainy afternoon, or the sudden pause of a reflective walk home. When we think carefully about why this happens, we realize that longing has less to do with possession and more to do with meaning, since the heart is not a machine that only collects memories of things we have touched, but rather a restless ocean that gathers waves from faraway storms. Sometimes, those storms are nothing more than unspoken words, fleeting encounters, or dreams that dissolved before they could be born. Whenever we walk through places filled with beauty, whether it is a crowded city that hums with life or a quiet beach where the horizon melts into the sky, our minds have a way of attaching emotions to moments that did not belong to us, yet still felt as if they could. Once the thought is planted, it grows roots deep inside, so deep that even years later we find ourselves yearning for something that was never ours in the first place. There are countless examples of this. For instance, when we stumble upon a stranger whose eyes shine with kindness and whose smile lingers in our memory, even though nothing ever happened and no words were exchanged. Or when we pass by a beautiful old house with a garden blooming in the late afternoon light and imagine a life we might have lived inside it. Or when we hear a song that we never knew before, yet somehow feels like it has been waiting for us for decades. Although none of these belong to us, they leave behind traces as real as anything we once held tightly. The longing becomes especially strong when we are in transitional periods of life, because during those fragile in-between times, when one chapter has ended but the next has not yet begun, our hearts cling to the shadows of possibilities. And since we are uncertain of the future, we fill the silence with dreams of what might have been. When we look back on the patterns of longing, it becomes clear that time plays a crucial role. As days slip into weeks and weeks stretch into years, memory begins to blur the lines between reality and imagination, so much so that we can no longer tell if the thing we miss was something that truly happened or something we only wished for. As a result, our nostalgia grows heavier. While some people might call this foolish, it is actually deeply human, because missing something that was never ours is a sign that our hearts are alive, creative, and endlessly searching. Sometimes the longing appears in small, almost invisible ways, such as when we catch the smell of rain on dry ground and feel a sudden ache for a version of ourselves who might have once walked with someone we never met. Or when we see the golden light of sunset and imagine an entire love story unfolding beneath its glow. even though no such story ever existed. Other times it strikes with overwhelming force, for example, when we find ourselves crying over a book, a painting, or a movie scene, not because it belonged to us, but because it reminded us of what could have been ours if life had taken just a slightly different turn. As we grow older, this longing does not disappear but instead transforms, becoming quieter, more reflective, and often more painful, since we realize with increasing clarity that certain doors will never open, certain paths will remain untaken, and certain people will always remain strangers no matter how vividly we once imagined knowing them. In those moments of recognition, we feel the weight of missing something that never existed, and although we cannot name it precisely, the ache is real as any heartbreak. One of the reasons we feel this way is that imagination is not bound by reality. It paints everything with brighter colors, softer shadows, and more hopeful endings. When life fails to match the glow of what we imagined, the contrast leaves us yearning. While reality is often complicated, messy, and unpredictable, imagination is generous, forgiving, and endlessly inviting, and so we cling to it, even when we know deep down that it was never ours to begin with. Yet there is also beauty in this longing, because it reminds us that we are capable of feeling deeply, even for things we never touched, and it shows that our hearts are vast enough to hold not only memories of what was, but also dreams of what could have been. When we let ourselves acknowledge the ache without shame, we begin to understand that missing what we never had is not weakness, but evidence of our tenderness, our openness to possibility, and our refusal to live only within the narrow lines of what is tangible. Over time, we may even learn to treasure this kind of longing because it connects us to our own humanity and binds us to others who feel the same. After all, everyone at some point has carried the ghost of a possibility, whether it was a love that never bloomed, a career that was never chosen, a friendship that never formed, or a place that was never visited. In sharing those silent aches, we realize that we are not alone. The longing becomes less of a burden and more of a reminder that life is vast, unpredictable, and filled with countless paths, only some of which we will ever walk. In the end, the reason we often miss what was never ours is because we are creatures of hope. Hope does not belong only to the past or the present, but also to the endless realm of what might have been. While reality is finite, hope is infinite, and in that infinity, our hearts wander, gathering shadows of lives we never lived, until they feel almost as precious as the lives we did. So whenever we catch ourselves missing something that was never ours, instead of dismissing the feeling as foolish, we might pause and honor it, because in that longing lies proof that we are alive, sensitive, and capable of carrying worlds within us, even worlds that never came true.